Okay, here we are, section 21, the electrical system. And I believe we're installing some of the coolest stuff on this helicopter, featuring the MGL Enigma. Now the first thing we're going to do is install the components. Then we're going to position and install the wire harnesses. Now we have two harnesses, the airframe harness and the FADEC harness. Both those harnesses interface with each other. Now I know this can be a little intimidating at first, but we do have two construction prints that will be very useful. The wiring schematic and the other construction print shows the harness and the component layout. Now another thing you can consider during this installation is avionics. Now avionics can be installed right below the Enigma. Now a typical VFR avionics package would include a transceiver, a transponder, an intercom, and an encoder. Rotorway has available an optional avionics package, and you can call customer service for more details. So I know there's some cool stuff to install, so let's get started.
Refer to the construction manual, section 21, for components and prints. Do not connect any wires to the battery until instructed to do so, later in section 25, final rigging. At different stages of this section, it will be necessary to position and/or install the tub, seat back, and floor pan for the routing of the electrical wires and installation of the instruments. The wiring should be secured with wire ties as necessary. Do not stretch the wires tight, but allow some flexibility between components. Wires that are under tension may pull out of the connector. Important: secure all wiring away from the main shaft and other rotating parts. The FADEC harness connects to the negative terminal. Never connect this lead to a positive terminal. This is the instrument mounting panel for the A600 Talon as received from Rotorway. Fit the instrument panel into the opening of the pod. Some trimming of the aluminum panel may be necessary for a good fit. Locate and drill the 12 mounting angles as shown in the construction manual. Use a number 30 drill bit. Wax the back side of the panel to prevent the fiberglass resin from sticking during installation, and clamp it into the desired location. Clean the inside surface of the floor pan about 3 inches from the edge with acetone. Note: the instrument panel should be recessed about 1/2 inch into the pod from the edge of the opening to the face of the panel. This provides room for the rubber molding to be mounted around the edge of the pod. Cut the fiberglass angle material E32-3140 into 1 1/4 inches in length. You will need to cut 12 pieces. Cut 12 strips of mat also. Position the fiberglass angles on the inside wall of the pod corresponding to the 12 mounting hole locations. Secure the fiberglass angles on the inside wall of the pod using the resin and fiberglass mat. After the resin has cured, drill through the 12 mounting holes in the instrument panel, angle brackets, and cleco in place. Install the nut plates on the fiberglass angles as shown. Trim any excess angle material that interferes with the instrument mounting. Note: it's recommended the area just below the Enigma display be cut out for installation of avionics. This should be done before installing the black fabric. Cover the panel with the black fabric. Trim the fabric as required, then mount the instruments. In this video, the panel will be left uncovered. The instrument panel and components. Install the instrument panel warning lights as shown. Install the instrument panel harness. Reference the construction print E35-2001 for the connections. Install the 3-conductor cable from the rotor RPM tack and bundle it with the instrument panel harness. Cut the length of the cable to match the harness length and install the Molex connectors. This disconnect will help with panel removal and service. Mount the rotor tack sender under the hood bracket as shown. Install the magnet strip on the main shaft. Set the clearance about 1/8 of an inch. The center of the magnets must be in line with the center of the sender. To minimize interference from the electrical system and to receive a steady reading from the sender to the tack, route the wires from the sender to the tack down the pilot side of the airframe. Cover the quick disconnect pins with a piece of heat shrink and wire tie the ends. Mount the starter relay to the pilot side fuel tank bracket using the supplied bolt and the 1 bolt securing the tank strap as shown. Be sure to remove the paint on at least 1 bolt for a good ground. Install the spark plug wires to the spark plugs on the engine. The spark plug wires are labeled. Reference the construction manual for the spark plug positions. Before installing each spark plug wire, look inside the boot and verify the metal end is in the proper position. Place a small amount of dielectric grease on the terminals of the spark plug and ignition packs when installing the wires. When the wire is installed either to the coil or the spark plug, it should snap into place and feel solidly attached. Use the spark plug separators to prevent the wires from contacting each other and other components. Mark or label the wire numbers on the back of the upper panel for future reference. Warning: never crank, start, or run the engine with any of the spark plug wires disconnected from either the ignition pack or the plugs. Route the main airframe harness beginning with plugs number 1 and number 2 at this location, and then down the passenger side as shown. Note: hold the wiring in place with a few wire ties until final position has been determined. Connect the plugs to the inertia switches. Route the wires along the airframe tube as shown. Route the harness that feeds the alternator along the airframe tube as shown. As an option, these wires can be placed in a wire loom to help prevent chafing. Connect the 2 leads with the inline fuses to positive terminal on the alternator. Connect the small lead number 5 to the regulator wire. Use wire ties and short pieces of rubber hose to secure the harness to the airframe approximately every 6 inches. Route the wires with instrument plugs number 3 and number 5 to the instrument panel along the front landing gear tube. Route the start button plug number 11 and starter relay wire down the pilot side of the airframe, and then route rotor tack sender cable back to the front of the pilot side as shown. Connect the red wire with the inline fuse to terminal number 3 on the start relay. Connect the white wire to terminal number 1 on the start relay. Route those wires to the engine start motor as shown. The white connects to the quick disconnect terminal. Reference the construction print. The negative starter cable connects to the mounting bolt on the starter to the main airframe negative on the passenger side, shown here. Connect the negative of the main wire harness to this bolt also. The fuel pumps should have been mounted so that the black negative terminals are facing towards each other. Attach the negative leads, each marked number 16, to the black negative terminals, and the positive leads marked number 37 and number 38 to the yellow terminals. Apply a film of dielectric grease to the fuel pump connector and set it inside the terminal. Install the boots. Install the connector on the fuel pressure sending unit. Locate the wires for the oil temperature sending unit and route them along the engine mount tubing. Install the Molex connector and mate with the airframe harness connector number 7. Install the oil pressure sending unit and route the wires and install the connector. With harness in place, secure the harness with wire ties and rubber hose standoffs, approximately every 6 inches. Always secure the wires to the airframe in such a way so they will not come in contact with any moving parts. Install the mating terminals and their insulators to the leads on the fuel tank sending unit and connect them to plug number 9. The single pin male plug is the ground to the wiring harness. Note: the ground ring terminal is secured to the collective spring eye bolt. Install the ECUs to the mounting plate with the supplied hardware. The ECUs are identical but have been programmed differently. One is labeled primary and the other is labeled secondary. Mount the primary ECU towards the front. Note: this ground strap must be connected between the ECU mount plate and the airframe. Important: remove the paint from the seat back bolt hole on the airframe for a good electrical connection. Install the ECU plate to the seat back. The relay box and RDAC mount plate as received from Rotorway. The mounting plate is located under the seat back and is secured with nut plates and hinges. Check the fit. Some trimming of the mounting plate may be necessary to fit your seat back. The hinges can be cut to fit. Be sure to secure the hinge pin with a punch. This will prevent the pin from working itself out. The hinges can be riveted to the mounting plate. Then locate the holes in the seat back and install 832 screws and nut plates. Add the aluminum angle as a stiffener to support the mount plate in this area. Place the RDAC in this position and locate the holes. Drill 5/32" holes and install the supplied spacers and lock nuts. Do not install the RDAC at this time. Install the mounting plate to the seat back. Using template E35-1, cut out and drill the ignition module backing plate. The holes must be loose enough that the bolts do not bind. The packs must sit flat against the backing plate without binding or twisting. When the packs fit properly, apply a film of dielectric grease between the ignition packs and the backing plate and between the plate and the inspection panel. Insert the bolts from the cabin side of the panel. Again, do not install washers under the heads of the bolts. Install the ground wire on the 4 lower bolts. Then install a thin washer and nut on each bolt. Install the insulated ground strap on this bolt. Gradually tighten the bolts, alternating from one to another until snug. Final tighten the bolts to 75 inch-pounds. Mount the manifold and barometric sensors on the inspection panel using the supplied hardware. Use a plastic tee to connect the two map sensors to the hose barb on the engine. Use hose clamps to secure the hose. If equipped with an ACES engine, the Baro sensors have vacuum hoses that will connect to the fittings on the plenum. If you have a normally aspirated engine, no hoses are connected to the Baro sensors. In addition, if you have an ACES engine, mount the stepper motor controller to the inspection panel. This is the FADEC harness as received from Rotorway. Remember, before installing a FADEC harness connector, inspect for any debris or foreign material inside the plug and make sure the pins are straight and haven't been damaged. Make sure the weather-tight seals are in place on the plugs that are equipped with them. Add a small amount of dielectric grease to the rubber seal. Install the FADEC wiring harness. Temporarily secure the harness with wire ties to hold in place. Then after all connections have been made and the seat back is installed, use wire ties and rubber hose standoffs to secure the harness to the airframe. Reference the construction print for FADEC harness installation. Connect the 4 FADEC harness connectors to the airframe harness connectors. Route and plug in the connectors to the throttle position sensors. The primary number 1 is aft, and the secondary number 2 is forward. Plug in the connectors for the fuel injectors. It will be necessary to rotate the injectors to seat the plugs. The connectors must not bind against the intake manifold runners. Route and plug in the connectors for the ignition sensors. The secondary sensor is on cylinder number 1 and 2, or pilot side. To help with installation, turn the engine to allow the slots in the flywheel to align over the sensor connector. Secure the ignition sensor wire with wire ties. Tie one wire tie around the water jacket elbow, and then one smaller tie through the wire tie and around the sensor wire, as shown here. Both NOx sensors are the same. Both engine coolant sensors are the same. Plug in the air temp connectors. Route the coolant pump wire along the alternator wire harness. The coolant pump connector comes with a plug with 2 leads. Do not discard this plug. Check and verify there is a metal 1/8 inch plug in this port on the intake manifold body. Once all the connections have been made, secure and bundle the FADEC harness with wire ties as shown. Builder tip: before installing the seat back, drill the holes in the airframe tabs located on the front lateral square drive tube. These are for the shoulder harness seat belts. Hole size is 5/16 of an inch. This will avoid removing the seat back again in the next section. Install the seat back and secure it to the airframe. Make sure to keep the wires and pressure lines clear of the seat back where it contacts the airframe. Connect the ground strap from the ECU mounting plate to the airframe at this bolt location. The paint must be removed for good ground connection. Connect the FADEC multiply pin connectors to the ECUs. Reference the construction manual for the correct orientation of the plugs. Remove the cover from the relay box and install it through the bottom of the mounting plate. Use the 4 supplied hex head screws. Now check the wire harness that feeds the relay box is long enough when the mounting plate hinges up and into position. Adjust the harness as necessary. Secure the RDAC to the mounting plate with the supplied hardware. Be sure to use the spacers. Reference the wiring diagram to connect the wires to the RDAC. Install the floor pan. Now with the floor pan installed, check the fit of the relay box and RDAC mount plate. Trim as necessary. Mount the GPS antenna at the tip of the floor pan as shown here. Drill a small hole to pass the cable end through. The antenna can be secured with a small amount of silicone. Place a towel or blanket on the floor pan and lay the instrument panel face down. Connect the RDAC date cable, the attitude indicator, electronic compass, OAT probe, and GPS antenna to the connectors on the Enigma display as per the construction wiring diagram. Connect the pitot tubing to the airspeed indicator. Install the instrument panel and secure with the screws. On final install, the rubber molding around the edge of the pod opening should be secured into position with an adhesive. The rubber molding is the same as the skid pants rubber molding located on E45, card 1. Connect the instrument panel Molex connectors to the corresponding airframe harness connectors. Fuel shutoff cable and clamp. Locate and drill a hole for the fuel shutoff push-pull cable. Remain clear of passenger collective stick. Route cable along pilot side and secure the cable housing with the supplied clamp. Install cable end in valve arm. The ACES-equipped talon requires the air inlet to be cut in the tub bottom. These are air intake parts and stepper motor assembly as received from Rotaway for the talon equipped with an ACES engine. Install the air inlet and stepper motor assembly. Remove the plastic protection. Install a clamp on the hose first, then install the assembly. Tighten the hose clamp. Center the retainer plate's opening to the inlet housing's opening and drill 6 holes and cleco together. Locate the inlet housing on the passenger side as shown here. Transfer the holes and cleco in place. Trim the housing as necessary. Now cleco the retainer to the outside of the tub and mark the inside edge. Cut the inlet opening about 3/8 of an inch outside the marked line. Install housing, filter, and retainer using the supplied nut plates and screws. The battery post panel and hardware. Connect the battery post panel to the airframe harness positive and negative cables. Be sure and mark the positive lead. Place the tub in position under the airframe. Use a box to support the tub, then secure the tub to the seat back with a few screws. Locate the placement of the battery post panel on the tub surface with reference to the airframe harness cables. Mark the outline of the panel and remove the tub to install the panel. Drill 4 holes and use Clecos to secure panel location. Cut an opening for exterior access. Locate and mark one of the 2 battery cables with red tape to indicate positive. Attach the panel to the cables from the harness. Now attach the cables that connect the battery to the panel. Route the cables along the airframe and up to the battery. Do not connect the cables to the battery. Install the tub. Secure the battery terminal panel to the tub opening with screws. If ACE is equipped, connect the 3.5-inch diameter flex hose from the inlet housing to the stepper motor assembly. Install the lower passenger panel and attach the connectors per the construction print. Connect the insulated ground wire off the ignition module to the airframe ground. Connect the spark plug wires to the inboard and outboard ignition packs. The switch panel is mounted to the roof panel on the body, 832 screws with nut plates located in the switch panel cover. Here's a builder tip. The switch panel cover can be attached to the roof panel separate of the switch panel. This will be a big help with service and reinstallation. First, cut an opening in the cabin roof panel, 3/4 inch smaller than the overhead switch panel on all sides. Locate on the switch panel 6 holes as shown and then transfer those holes to the switch panel cover. Also use the switch panel and transfer the holes to the roof panel. Now locate and drill 2 1/8-inch holes at the center of the front and rear of the switch cover and roof panel only. Do not drill holes in the switch panel. Install 8 832 nut plates in the cover and cut a hole in the rear of the cover for the wires to pass through, about 1 1/2 inches in diameter. Open all the holes in the roof panel to 3/16 of an inch. Countersink the 2 holes at the front and rear center of the roof panel. Place a bead of silicone along the edge of the cover and install 2 countersunk screws and secure the switch cover to the roof panel as shown. Use Clecos in the nut plates to press the silicone seal until dry. Wipe away excess silicone. Note: the switch panel has pre-drilled holes for the additional switches and holes for the headset jacks. Install the roof panel and transfer the opening to the interior liners if installed. Push the wire harness Molex connectors through the hole and connect the switch panel harness. Secure and panel with the 6 screws. On your final assembly, install 832 screws and nut plates to secure the back edge of the roof panel to the seat back. Important: be sure all wiring is secured away from the main shaft. On your final install, silicone the opening of the cover where the harness passes through to prevent moisture from entering. Do not connect the cables to the battery until all the wiring has been completed. Use template E36-1 and fabricate the compass mount bracket out of 50 thousandths aluminum. Attach the compass to the bracket and bend the bracket to match the contour of the windscreen. The approximate location is